know when you have an itch for a new car and you think, I'd love one of those. I've never had that feeling, that sort of slight urge in the trousers for a new Lamborghini post-Diablo.
And you had to drink Stella. You weren't allowed to drink any other beers. You had to drink Wife Beater, and you had to listen to AC/DC.
I've given the car a name. It's called Grace.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Collecting Addicts podcast, live on a balmy sunny day from the Concours of Elegance at Hampton Court in London. It really does feel like a very special venue. I'm here with Edward Lovett, Chris Cooper, Manish Pandey and Neil Clifford. You might have heard our podcast before. If you have, there's a few in-gags that you'll get. If you haven't, we apologise in advance. Try and catch up at the back. Subjects, here we go. We're going to start with: what car should you love, but you just don't get it? This is my segue into the Alpha 33 that was launched this week. So that might give you a clue as to my opinion of the styling of that vehicle. Let's start with Neil Clifford, because he loves not going first.
Oh, I've gone more of a brand, not just a car, a brand.
Okay.
Any Lamborghini post-Diablo.
Bloody hell, that's a bit of a statement.
That's a bit of a statement, but I thought deeply about this. And
So they gave you a Mercy 640 Manuel.
No, too pointy.
Too pointy.
Too pointy, too loud. I like loud cars, but
Have we got the real Neil Clifford?
No, I've never. You know when you have a
They're quite loud.
They are, yeah. I've got a story of these trousers.
God.
I've got a story of most things. You know when you have an itch for a new car and you think, I'd love one of those, whether it be a Ferrari or Porsche or Alpha 33, not. I've never had that feeling, that sort of slight urge in the trousers for a new Lamborghini post-Diablo. It does nothing for me at all.
I could see you having a Urus as your company car.
No. There's not one that I would, maybe manual Murcielago. Maybe.
There you go, a 640 in that olive green Manuel.
With the little things that come out at the back, maybe.
You're getting a bit tenty now.
But I think there's nothing about it that gets me excited, really.
I thought get that.
On the subject of the Urus, is there...
Don't point at me like
Is there a worse thing you can say about someone than you would suit an Urus?
Probably not, no.
You look like an Urus kind of person to me.
You remember I told you guys that I'm really terrified of cockroaches. That's my big thing, big cockroaches, since I was hit in the head as a kid in India by a flying cockroach.
Is this going to be your petrol station problem?
You hadn't told us that, but you have now.
A black Murcielago looks like a cockroach. Okay, it just looks like a cockroach. Okay, not a good look.
I'm imagining you like that scene in the first Batman film of the most recent trilogy, where the sort of potato sack goes on and it all gets a bit weird. That's terrifying.
We were doing new DC comics. I'd be Cockroach Man.
You would
imagine that?
Cockroach
You
Man.
can't kill him.
But can you imagine yourself in a Aventador?
No, I can't, actually. I think if it had a proper gearbox, maybe. I think an Aventador is a seriously beautiful car. And part of the reason why I didn't understand the Countach, the latest Countach, is I think it doesn't look as good as an Aventador.
Yeah.
And I did buy a Gallardo when I was a child.
I remember that.
But that was largely to try and make a statement. And all I did was remind myself I couldn't afford
That was
a
nice,
Gallardo.
though. I like that.
I admire the brand. I admire the cars. I just have no desire for one.
Edward Lovett. Name me a car or a brand. I mean, he's gone wide there.
What, car or brand?
Go car.
So
You've got everything written down on your crib
I've written
sheet.
two things down here. I've written SF90.
Yeah.
You should love it. It's a Ferrari.
Yeah.
It's just way too bloody expensive. Zero practicality. So, and ugly? You think ugly? Yeah. Okay.
Ugly.
Ugly, fine. And the other one I've put down here is any 2+2 that isn't actually a 2+2, because you're going to chop off your children's or friends' legs in the back of them. Well, you say that. A 911, I think you can fit in the back of a 911. Well, sort of like that.
We can't
But
criticise
not on the back of the
911s on this
Singer.
show.
I would do it for you.
Yeah, fine. Thank you very much.
So the reason why I wrote this down was the Alpha 33 was released this week. Everyone here who's a nerd will have known about that, seen an email or an Instagram photograph of it. So it's a modern interpretation of that 33 Stradale, which I think we all agree is one of the most beautiful cars ever made. And it looks like they've taken the Maserati MC12 tub, they've sort of melted a bit of bodywork over it, and applied a load more power, which is the logical thing to do, but it doesn't seem to really invoke the legacy of the car which is named after, and I just don't think it looks quite right.
No.
But it's got those carbon fibre bits by the eyes and by the...
But I wanted to love it. It's anything that's got Alfa Romeo stamped on it, I want to love.
I disagree with you, by the way. You're very vocal about this, but I still think it looks very good. I would like one.
White trousers. And so I just think, I looked at it and I had this moment where I thought, I want to love that car, but I can't. I just don't.
It's
see
not
why.
authentic. There's nothing between the original one and this that makes you believe it.
But if it looked, jaw-droppingly gorgeous, you wouldn't care about the fact that they'd hijacked a bit of heritage. You just go, in isolation, it's a great-looking car, and you can't even say that about it. I think the 8C, by the way, is a beautiful-looking car.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's better. Okay. You can have the Alpha 33, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Should, but
The
we don't.
8C is not £2.5 million.
No, well,
Yet.
Yes.
Matthew Beard, who we mention every week, thinks they should be, but of course they're not. Mr. C, what's
Right,
the
so,
car that fits into this category for you?
So, we've talked before about the original Defender and the Land Rover series. So there are lots of us who should love the new Defender, but I just don't. I just don't get it. It's an awful lot of car for not much in it. All of them seem to be black wheels, black windows, black paint, blackety black, and it's just too much. It's
Not the
just
collecting cars one. That's got white ones.
no, the 90,
Steelies.
the 90 looks nice, but you literally can't put anything in it.
Well, that's not
Apart
true.
from you.
Put this in the back.
The 90
Some
does look
socks. We got
It
socks
does
in
look
the
nice.
back.
does look all
It
right.
does look nice. And yesterday, some of you may know, I occasionally talk about my boys. One of my boys was racing at Donington yesterday, and the bloke that drove into him and wrote his car off was driving a black Defender 110. I rest my case. I was going to say a 991 or 992 Targa, because I know you really like it. I just don't, it looks like something Jerry Anderson would have invented.
The Porsche Bugaboo. It is the Porsche Bugaboo.
For Lady Penelope on a weekend to go whizzing out without Parker. That big, that glass thing in the back would just lift up and she'd be able to launch the rockets herself. That's why I don't like the 991.
There's a lot of
Targa.
disagreement here today, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think the new Targas are great. It
I
just
don't
reminds me that I'm
understand why you
middle-aged.
do.
Because
It's just
they
wrong.
work so well.
It just looks fat and
You had
bulbous
two
and
6 Series convertibles in period
And you-
with no sense of irony at all. You
No, it
drive
was
along
no
with
sense of irony. And you think I feel embarrassed about that. I'm really not
Oh,
embarrassed
Edward's
about
notes
that.
have gone. He's bollocks.
I'm really not embarrassed about that.
Mine. He's fucked now.
It's going well.
We're not allowed to do that here, right? We'll take your point. You've gone broad brush again. So you started off eviscerating the Defender. Now you've just moved to Stuttgart and hammered their brilliant combo convertible thing.
Because I knew it would wind you up.
Okay, Manish, what's the car that you'd love to love, but you've ended up hating?
So Neil's going to hit me over the head.
Yep.
Ferrari FF. Never got into that car. Ever. Don't get the whole bread van thing. I just don't get it.
Luca doesn't like you anymore.
I know. It's
No,
although he says the back isn't quite right.
He's now going to say something that's going to really... Okay, go on, Manish. Tell the
No.
story.
I mean, they spent a long time designing it, and he really wanted to build a car that 4 people could really get into, that had Ferrari performance. They looked into the future, and they were thinking about 4-wheel drive. So all of these things were planned out, but even he admits in the final execution, it's not right from the back. And for me, it's not right from the side nor from the back.
Good 2+2 that though.
Look, inside, I mean, it's a completely flawless car. If you're driving it, or if you're sitting in the back, it's absolutely gorgeous. But it ain't no 456 MGT.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
I mean, that's killed it, hasn't it?
Manual or automatic?
Manuel.
Remember what Lucas said.
I think the FF is a brilliant looking car. In fact, I prefer it to the Lusso.
Definitely.
I think there's a bit more geometry to the design.
Yeah,
I like all
yeah.
the shapes.
Yep.
The rear lights on the Lusso are terrible. I
They
think
are,
Luca
yeah.
was talking about the Lusso, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think he misinterpreted.
I'm going to add one more to this, just to wind up the large bloke to my right. I think the Ferrari 250 short wheelbase, I mean, an alley-bodied 250 short wheelbase for me in
You're in the
Jalify
wrong place.
would be the best car I could ever own. I just love that car. But the car that doesn't look right is the 275.
Oh, yes.
I just don't. I always look at it. I walk around
It's
it and go.
cross-eyed.
It is. It's like.
Not if it's been restored properly.
It's like that. It's like a Morgan Aero 8 from Maranello.
A short nose, maybe, but a GTB4. I'm sorry.
Short nose is the
Beautiful
best.
As Euro California one over here with red leather.
I think it's
Did you
just
miss that
this
one,
is just a
Christopher?
wind-up now. I'm not biting on the 275 conversation whatsoever.
Right. Given that we're surrounded by beauty in all its forms here, we're now going to discuss the etiquette of the UK petrol station, or forecourt as they're often known. Because I was this week, I've just observed some really random behaviour at petrol forecourts, and normally it's things that we experience during the week that we bore you with when we record. So first of all, I'm going to start this off as a question to all of you. You're at a busy petrol station. It's so busy the cars are almost chewing up behind you onto the road. You know, when they're spilling onto the road, you're becoming a public hazard, all of you. You've filled up. Ahead of you are 6 parking spaces, and you know where this is going, where you can park to go into the M&S or Waitrose, whatever it is. Do you leave your car at the pump to avoid potentially being accused of driving off without paying, or do you confidently move your car 20 yards forwards to go into the parking space to allow someone else to get to the petrol pump? Chris Cooper. This could go on a while, by the way.
The latter.
Straight answer, nothing more.
Do you need anything else?
Normally we get about 20 minutes.
I tell you what, you raise an interesting question, because these days, are there any cars left? There are some where the petrol filler thing is on the left-hand side of the car. So all of those, because pumps are on both sides, hose on both sides. I quite often reverse in to the empty lane of the petrol.
Oh, you're that guy.
I'm that guy. It drives people around the bend. It's just efficient use of space. It's just thinking about the problem. I'm here to help.
Are you chaotic at a petrol station, Christopher?
I've been known to get it a bit wrong.
Yeah.
But I just cannot understand if you have an open opportunity to make someone's life easier behind you, why you don't. And
Yeah,
it's
you
the ones
you do
it's the
that.
ones that do that they don't take the car forwards. You're behind them and you're tapping at the wheel. If you're nil, you're probably tapping a bit, you're ticking, and you're letting them know quietly that you're not happy with the decision they've made to keep that pump occupied whilst they went into the shop and perused the confectionery and thought, what Pringles am I going to cream and chive am I going to just get on with it and get back here so I can get in there. But they come back and they'll have a chat to the passenger. They might go for a seat belt. And at that point, you're thinking, is it acceptable to go to the back of my car, get out my 6-iron and impale it in his head?
Yes.
But you've reached that point over 4 minutes whilst they've pulled... I don't understand
Quite
it.
quickly. Yeah.
This is what France have got the netiquette nailed. Sorry, you always move into the space outside the service station.
That's the only place I do it.
You wouldn't want to be
weirdly.
attacked.
I
by-
can't explain why, but in France, you fill up and you go and park.
And
I
also
think
in
it's
France,
the nature of the fact there's good coffee inside a French place.
Better.
But in
Yep.
UK, there isn't good coffee, so you're angry anyway. That you're I
coffee
don't
in
even
France,
want to
you
go
sure?
in there.
All right, then,
Coffee
Neil.
in France, those machines are
What
lovely.
about... So what if you're forced to get a Costa from the mobile Costa machines that we are pushed
never
into
do
in the
it.
country? Never.
Never.
Can you not drink it?
No.
He doesn't have cup holders, and he does not drink
He doesn't
coffee.
have
in
cup
cars.
holders. He doesn't have cup holders, does he?
No, I wouldn't do the Costa thing.
No, you wouldn't.
No.
Not even a cheeky cortado. The
No.
cortado is actually drinkable.
It's terrible
No.
coffee.
It's terrible.
What if you need it?
Well, just go and get
just
proper
wait.
coffee.
Red
Yeah,
Bull.
Wait. Yeah.
Okay,
Have a cup of
so
tea.
here's a scenario for you, Neil Clifford. You go to a service station, and the queue for a right-hand filler car is so long that you could be there for an hour. However, there's a left-hand side opportunity that's just made itself available.
Oh, I do it.
But you're in a car that you've just bought. It's brand new. And it's not got one of those pull-out ones. It's got one of those ones that's hinged at the top. So you're going to have to drag that filthy, thick rubber thing over the roof of your new
Vibrating.
coachwork.
It
And,
vibrates as well.
you know you're going to cause some
I
damage.
do it.
Do you?
Yeah, I do it. Always. I go for the quickest option, no matter which side the
You've had a tough
Does
week.
everyone know, actually? I think, Chris, we talked about this before, sorry. There's a tiny little arrow on the fuel gauge
Telling you which side.
telling you
Yeah.
what side the petrol cap is. I didn't know that.
Took me about 40 years to figure that
It's
out.
for rental cars. It was put there for rental cars
Yeah.
because of, obviously you get a rental
But
car, you
once you
never
start-
know which side it is, but you can see it on the dash.
Once you start dispensing motor spirit, I think we'll find is the correct term, then the big green hosey thing starts to vibrate, and that's going to make little sort of
No, I do
horrible
it.
little itchy in your.
If you can save a couple of minutes, you do it.
Do you
or
lock
you
in-
reverse in like a normal person would like.
Do you
No,
lock in
they're
if you
the
need to do a
weirdos.
full
I
tank?
wouldn't
Do you
do that.
lock in the old thing?
Well, you can't
Oh,
do it in this
oh.
country. They're all disabled in this country.
The one thing, if I could invent a gadget and make millions, Rodney, it would be a little spring-loaded thing. You could put, as you squeeze the trigger, you could insert it in the gap between the trigger and the edge of the holster guard thing, and it would hold the thing there, and you could sit there with a big smug grin on your face.
He didn't
An
hear
old
what, he didn't
Porsche
hear what you
does
said,
it.
did he? So in Europe, continental Europe, all the handles are the locks are enabled, so you can lock the pump on. But in the UK,
Yeah.
by law, they're disabled.
Yeah.
In this country, you're not allowed to have them. So the solution is every keyring I have for a car has something wide enough that I can wedge it into there, and I can.
Oh,
just-
you do that,
every
do you?
time. Of course
So,
I do.
what, so you can make a phone call and have a fag?
Well, I just think I look casual.
A Porsche 928 GTS petrol cap fits in that hole.
It does, doesn't
It
it?
does.
It does. That car was so well designed.
There's a test for psychopaths in garages as well. So you've got someone in front of you. You do pull up at a pump. So there's a pump to your right, and there's a guy in front of you. The guy in front of you, the moment you turn your ignition off, the guy in front of you drives off. So there's a gap now
Yes.
in front of you.
Yeah.
Normal people start their car again and just move forward 20 feet. Psychopaths.
I would
Don't.
move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, you move forward.
Most normal people would move forward, but not in Belsize Park.
In 10 years'
Yeah,
time,
I've
we're
heard
going to be
that.
having this conversation about the etiquette of charging our
I
cars.
think
aren't
that's
we?
charging,
right.
Yes.
yeah.
Or not-
That's
not-
that.
I was
I
at
don't
the
think we.
supercharger
I don't
station.
think we can even
Actually,
comment
do you know
on
what? That is a massive problem because I've seen fisticuffs at Gordano Services, which is Neil's favourite services. I saw fisticuffs when someone in the holiday rush last summer put their Model X Tesla onto charge, and everyone can see that it was charged, but they stayed in there and had a KFC and didn't move their car out. And they came out, and this very angry man was pushing this other chap around, saying, "Why did you do that?" And
Can
I-
you pre-book one before you arrive? Can
No.
you book a slot?
No.
You've just got to hope
That's
for the
the
best.
last thing on earth I need to know whether you can do that.
No. Well, you don't
I'm
anymore.
never-
You almost needed to know once.
But
upon a
what's
time.
going to happen in 10 years' time?
Oh, that's too much for today. We can't deal with that. Come on.
No, but
Neil, don't-
wait. You also said quirks. Okay.
Khan would have put the ULEZ out to about Bristol and Glasgow by then.
Yeah, that's by the way, that's Richard Porter and Johnny Smith just revving a car behind to completely
They'll have
shaft
to do
our
that.
recording, I think. Yeah.
No, you said quirks as well. Does anyone remember? I think the nicest modern quirk in a garage were Shell stations in 2007 when you could buy the little Ferraris. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
They were so. And they had actual proper rubber wheels, and the rubber tires would come off, and they had that little motor. You could push them down, do that, let them go, and
What about the 80s as well? The mid to late 80s, I reckon half of the crockery and glassware in this country came from Esso, didn't it? Because every time you bought some fuel, they'd be throwing glassware at you. Like, I've already got 24
I've got the tumbler.
of the small white wine glass. I want something for orange juice now. There was so much of it.
One final. So you're in Italy. Pull off the Autostrada, and there is two pumps there. One with a man stood at it, with slightly more expensive fuel, or one before with cheaper fuel. Which
Go
one do
with
you
the
to?
man.
You go with the man.
It's just a lovely thing, isn't it? That a
You
man
can still
fills your
do that
car
in
up
Jersey, can't you?
and you tip
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
and you give him €5.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
You could do that here. They'd probably nick your car.
Actually, Shell tried that, didn't they, a few years ago? They tried
They did.
reintroducing attendants, and everyone looked at them sort of, I'm a bit suspicious, you're trying to be helpful, I don't understand. And it just died a death, didn't it?
Here we go, moving on. Now, this is a thorny issue, this one. It's important. Best rear seat of a car you've sat in. That was a very Bristolian way of explaining it because I had to get sat as a word, which isn't even a word. Edward Lovett, what's the best rear you've sat in?
I haven't always been this age,
Yeah.
so I'm going to say a Porsche 911.
He's twisted the question to give us a bogus answer.
I don't find myself often in the back of cars, and I don't think you need me to say a S-Class or a Prius or whatever Uber I've been in recently, but
You can be
into the back
so
of it-
camp, you know that.
What's wrong? But getting in the back of a 911 as a child, that felt pretty bloody cool. And as I grew, it got more uncomfortable, but I still didn't care. I was in the back with my father going somewhere. I loved it.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Neil Clifford, you going to have the same answer or not?
No, I didn't have a 911 in my life when I was little. What was my answer to this? My answer to this was, I know a man very close to me who, unfortunately, if you add 9 and 3 together, you get 12. And those 12 things are not very helpful when you need to drive, because it's just not very comfortable for the Mr. Policeman that you've got 12 of these things. Yeah. So you had to sit in the back for a while. And sitting in the back for a while, the only car was the long wheelbase Range Rover, the L405, because that is a lovely place to sit, because you feel like you're in business class. It's a lovely, massive legroom. I do have nice, well, decent legs, so legroom is important to me.
We've seen a lot more of your legs than the nice ladies and gentlemen here have.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So I would say if you have the unfortunate position to get 12 points and you have to sit in the back, the Range Rover long wheelbase is the place to be. So my friend told me.
Real solutions
Speaking
for real
on
life.
behalf of a mate, yes.
Manish, what's the best car you've sat in the back of, or the car that made you feel the most comfortable?
I can tell you the car that made me feel most happy. When I was at school, a friend of mine, Max, his father, just as a Sunday runaround, found a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2. And I can't remember what Uncle Francis paid for it, probably £10,000, something like that, not a crazy amount of money. And he would occasionally pick us up from school, but better, occasionally pick us up from a disco.
Oh.
In that car. And it was great. You come out of a disco with we're kids of the 80s, lots of gel in your hair, it's a very, very bad jacket rolled up to here.
Going the one you're wearing now?
Oh, come on.
Someone had to say it.
Yeah. But it was great. You came out, you were very sweaty, maybe a little bit drunk, and you got into the back of a Rolls Royce and got
you can't
dropped
beat that.
home.
Of a shad.
That was good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a shadow story to close by here. I hadn't thought about that until you said it, because the question is open to interpretation, like all these questions are. Is it the most comfortable, or is it the one that makes you feel the best? The one that's made me feel the best was a shadow as well. So a guy that Chris knew better than me was part of the Nern family that owned Caterham cars, and Graham was the father. Simon was the one we knew, wasn't it?
Simon was the son.
Simon was a really good lad. And the Nern family had a few debentures at Twickenham. And if if you'd said nice things about an R500, or you hadn't said horrible things, they'd sometimes invite you to the
Sounds
rugby.
like you knew him better than I did.
Yeah. So then they had this minicab driver that had run them around London for years, who was called Sultan. Right. And when they were pissed one night, they bought a shadow for about £6,000. And they gave it to Sultan and said, right, we just want you to take us to the rugby and occasionally pick us when we're drunk in London. For the rest of the year, the shad's yours. And they gave him this shadow, and we went to the rugby in it one day, got picked up on the Lower Richmond Road, and there were only 2 rules about the shadow. You had to listen to AC/DC in it, and you had to drink Stella. You weren't allowed to drink any other beers. You had to drink Wife Beater, and you had to listen to AC/DC. And they would park it, the fancy car park where everyone opens up
the Cardinal Vaughan,
the fancy one, which the Lovetts used to go to. If I went there, they thought I was parking the bloody car.
The picnic place.
So we turned up in the shad with AC/DC and the Stella going, and we were asked to leave quite quickly. But no
surprise.
It wasn't that comfortable, but wow, I remember sitting in the back of it.
When I read this question, I read it as the rear seat you've had the best experience in. I don't know. I am a bit dyslexic, but I've gone a bit off piece there, haven't I?
You have.
You've put a girl's name down.
No, I haven't.
No? What's that?
No, it's not.
Facility.
No,
that does say Grace.
It does say Grace.
It says Brazil.
But that's
that's something.
later.
Right.
Okay,
later.
give us your answer now.
And I did think, the nice gentleman on the panel with me want to hear another story about me in facility. For those of you who listened to this before.
No.
And I thought, no, you don't mean that.
No.
So actually, I think, I talked about this with Cameron, who was here, and we both came to the conclusion that it's the back seat of my Mini Madrick because I can sit in it.
Can you?
I can sit in it, yeah. I can sit in the back with the seat in the front in the same position for me.
Mr. Cooper's quite long as well. Stand up.
I'm quite.
I'm 5'1".
How tall are you?
Look, so that's to sit in the back of a Mini. That's a fair effort, actually. Yeah.
So I think, because it's such a small thing, I mean, it doesn't have a crash structure. I mean, you're it. So I kind of think Mini, an original Mini, mine's a 1962 Mini 850 that's been turned into one of these sort of beautiful Cooper-esque looking things with a mental engine, 115 horsepower in it. But it's got a back seat. It looks like a normal back seat. So I think if we're staying away from facility, then it would be the back seat on my Mini Madrick. I just think it's wonderful it's there and it's usable.
Okay.
If we're not staying away from facility, what would your favourite backseat?
We are now.
Okay. I've answered with an anecdote, but I spent a bit of time sitting in the back of seats of cars for work reasons. And what I find amazing is that there are lots of different sports cars I would enjoy driving. There are lots of different open-top cars, small cars. Every vertical I can find different versions of vehicles that I think do the job really well, but nothing beats an S-Class. Just think they're brilliant cars, whichever generation. If you get in the back of an S-Class and it's got an electric seat thing that allows you to do that, you just sit and think, this is the best car in the world.
Are you sponsored by Mercedes-Benz?
No, actually, they're not speaking to me at the moment. I don't know why.
Second week
I'm
you brought up the
not an
S-Class.
influencer, like.
Well, the place of 34th Street bought up a Porsche 911.
He's like a start record.
I think the Mercedes 600, there's one over there.
Oh,
Yeah, that's...
it's almost worth becoming a dictator so you can buy one.
Yeah.
Just go and get yourself a country, shoot a few people, and then you can just drive
I did
around
own
with it.
one. I bought JK's car.
Did you?
Did you?
I had the black car with the tan, the ex-Coco Chanel car that wasn't.
Yeah,
And that's a great back seat to sit in with your dog.
yeah.
I think you can judge people by the number of Mercedes 600s they own. By the number
I
they own.
only have owned one. I don't
That's why-
own
that's-
it anymore.
That's where I was getting to, because I think one is fine. One is enough. Some of you know from the pod that one of the things I do, I sit on the board of Motorsport UK, the governing body of Motorsport in the UK. So we do quite a lot with the FIA, and the relatively new president of the FIA, Mohammed bin Sulayem, is an Emirati. He has 200 cars in his collection, 23 of which are Mercedes 600s. 23 Mercedes 600s.
That's quite impressive.
What's the collective noun for that? Because for me that would be,
A lot.
given the amount of problems, it'd be a buggery
Do you think
of
it's
600s or it's just some calamitous word. Because they are the most complicated cars to look after, aren't they? The hydraulics. There's one old bloke near Stuttgart that can fix them, and he's quite a rich man now.
Yeah, that's why I ended up selling it, because as soon as you get in and the red light is on the dash, which tells you that the pressure's not on, and you've got
and
to
that's
leave
bad.
it running and rev the hell out of it for about 10 minutes for the red light, it's like, this
It's
is
got
gonna
hydraulic
be...
windows.
But wait,
though,
Mohammed
come
doesn't
on.
have 23 old 600.
The Mercedes Grosses.
Yeah.
Read it. I read it in Motorsport magazine, and then I was with somebody, one of his deputy presidents. I said, "That can't possibly be right." He said, "No, it really is. He's got that." So
Good
I
for
presume
him.
that the collective now must be a sultan of 600s or
An Emir. An Emir.
Chris,
a Fayed of 600s.
Emir
We've
Mercedes.
actually missed one,
What?
which was the car we sat in the back of in Abu Dhabi. Was it an? Well, no, it wasn't an Arnage.
It was a Mulsanne
Mulsanne.
EWB limo.
Yeah.
That's quite nice.
That was outrageous. Can we also tell the story? We told it on the podcast already, didn't we?
I got locked in the back of it.
Yeah, he
yes,
did get locked in the back of it, and it was really hot, and he had bulletproof glass, so we couldn't hear him inside it. And he was trying to kick his way, like smashing the windows, and we were having lunch about 3 yards away. Didn't know he was dying because he couldn't get out of it.
Did they tell you that you were just accidentally locked in it?
No.
It was like
Chris had the key in his pocket.
It was like live and let die. Got in it, and the locks went clunk. Done. That's- Right, here we go. Let's look at our topics again. What are we next to? Here we go. Things that car makers have deleted from their cars over time that you miss. I suspect we're all going to say the same thing. It's a bit of a test, this.
I bet we're not.
Oh, okay. We better start with you then.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, it's an eclectic audience here. I was going to see how we could segment it. So the first thing I was going to say was trafficator.
Oh,
What?
Trafficator. Do you know what a trafficator is?
No.
I can see about one nod.
Man in the Porsche gilet has just nodded. He knows what it is as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, over there as well. So, but that's not what I miss the most.
Can you explain what it is, please? Because no one else knows.
It's an indicator. Before indicators were little flashing orange or yellow bars, there was a mechanically propelled semaphore thing with sometimes a little flashing light in it. So if you were going to turn right, Morris Thousands had them in the original version with the split screen thing. From the B pillar, a little thing would sort of go like that at the side.
What, cover drive?
I'm so glad we have the opportunity to talk about this.
Yes.
I have them on
I thought that was a really bad cover drive.
It's called a trafficator.
Okay.
But that's not what I think car makers have deleted that I think is most irritating. It's grace. Car makers have stopped fitting grace to their cars. Now, I know this is an easy wicket here, with everybody here and all the cars that are here. But we talked a bit last week, we talked about ugliest wheels on cars. And I had a little bit of a go at Audi. And having done a lot of driving in the last week or so, Audi has lost grace. You and I have both had, lots of people here will have had RS6s, those are fortunate. The RS6 used to look, it had a bit of grace. It carried its purpose with a bit of grace and it wasn't over the top. I saw an RS6 this morning thinking, there is no way on God's earth I would get in that. It's just, grace has gone. I mean, the black Defender 110 owner that drove into my son yesterday, he didn't have any grace. So I think there's something wrong. There's something wrong that grace is still available.
Yeah,
no wonder he drove
I think
off.
many people here would agree with you, and a lot of it comes down to styling. Now, the aesthetics of life, sartorial matters, as Manish often points out to me, I don't understand at all. I wake up and I put clothes on backwards.
I won't hear that. Look at you
I know.
now.
I've got red dap on as well. Look at them. Do you like this red dap?
lovely.
And but there's something about styling. Everyone's had to move to a styling language that's quite aggressive to differentiate themselves, and they often need to reboot brands, and they do it with quite butch styling. It's quite, the language of cars is strong at the moment. And for your example, the RS6, I mean, it's too much for my eyes, even me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But compare it to a Ronin S8, that lovely Borosoap S8, the aluminium car. To me, it's very graceful.
Yeah, massively.
So, anyone else agree? Do you agree with Mr. Cooper's comment?
I completely agree with Mr. Cooper's comment.
Manish?
Thank
With those ugly BMWs, we're
Yeah.
always texting each other, horrible things.
Yeah.
Massive grills, massive.
Edward's a contrarian, he'll say something completely different.
Well, I still think Gray should have been in the one before, but best in the
my
rear seat.
My best experience in the rear seat. Yeah, no.
Grace.
You wish.
Okay, so that's a good one. I'll offer mine. I normally wait till last, and I hope I've not stolen your thunder, but there was a particular part, well, there are two aspects of BMW that I loved as a kid. First was the torch in the glove box was just home, and the toolkit in underneath the boot lid. I just used to love the fact that BMWs, you'd unscrew it, and when you went to buy a used BMW, it was the indicator of how the car had lived. Most traders would look at the fag lighter or the condition of the upholstery. I'd always go to the toolkit, and if there's anything missing, it was like, nah, what else? What else of a life has she led?
Suspicious.
Where else is she?
There's a spanner missing.
But if you had a gleaming toolkit where everything was in one and the little cloth was still in the right position over the top of the tools, and they were a bit oily and finished, you'd go, that's a car I'm buying. I mean, it could have 3 wheels and be, 120,000 miles, but I'd be, oh, the toolkit's good. Yeah. I just thought it was a great thing, and now they've gone. Why? If you were BMW, if it cost buttons to do those toolkits, leave them in there.
It's true.
Neil Clifford, what do you miss? This is going to be long.
That was a nice segue.
Was it?
I miss buttons.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that.
Buttons.
Go on, tell us.
Well, it's the biggest travesty of modern car design, be it on the inside as opposed to the outside. So ugly cars with no buttons. I mean, what's it all about, basically?
It's about Jerry McGovern, that's what it's about.
So I think buttons are massively underrated in importance, both in terms of practicality, use, but also in design. A lovely looking button is an amazing thing, right? And it's so much easier to use than the haptic thing. The haptic thing is a disease of design, isn't it?
Yes.
Awful bloody
Would you
things.
put analog dials in that as well? Because that's the other big
I
disease.
don't mind the digital dial thing because I quite like messing around with the different layouts. 1 minute you can have the big speedo and then you can have the whole map. Is that your dog?
That is my dog.
That is.
It's just
Beware,
a
everyone.
dog.
English.
He's
beware.
agreeing with me.
He's a
he
victim of poor styling. Bless him.
There is actually a phobia of buttons,
Is there?
which I looked it up
Not
this
racing
morning.
drivers, but
and
actual buttons.
actual buttons, and I think most people would know that there is a phobia of buttons. I can't
I
remember.
didn't know. I didn't know that.
I can't pronounce it because it's a word about this long. I'm dyslexic.
I'm
And
gonna Google,
I
live
looked
Google,
it,
live Google.
I looked at it about 100 times this morning, and I knew I wouldn't be able to remember it. But there is a phobia. Maybe all car designers have this
Have that phobia.
phobia of buttons.
Well, I'm assuming why it's happened is
Oh my God.
it's getting rid of bits.
pronounce that.
Coumpaunophobia. Coumpaunophobia. Coumpaunophobia.
It's a real thing. I've met 2 or 3 people in my world of design that cannot even look at a button.
That's a
Wow.
problem in your world, isn't it?
That's,
Well, it is in handbags, yeah.
That's like Chris Cooper
Sometimes
being
we-
allergic to long answers to questions.
Short answers.
Oh yeah.
but I think
buttons.
part of that it must be because that decontenting of how do we get rid of parts, how do we get the cost down. All of those buttons, they only got one purpose. I kind of see was it Steve Jobs when he launched the iPhone said, when he looked at stuff like the BlackBerry and said, they've got single-use buttons that only do one thing. I get it in an iPhone or an iPad because you're sort of usually sedentary or just doing something. But in a car,
That's right.
The guy that, those of us who are on TikTok, I mean, some of my...
We are
You're
not
all
on
aware of
TikTok.
TikTok
You are
now?
the only person.
I am
Use
in,
it.
okay, that's good.
You'll do
You
a
shouldn't
can you
be
do a
there.
dance?
Being
for
on
us?
TikTok at your age is
and
like
Neil
hanging
says-
around playgrounds. You
and
should
This
not be
answer
there.
comes to you from
Neil says
Beijing.
the Chinese know everything about me, but I mean, how much was there to know? There's
They're confused as
there's
well.
a guy on TikTok called Cycling Mikey. Has anyone seen Cycling Mikey on TikTok?
Oh, is this-
And
this the guy with
we'll
the
take a
phone?
break now from.
He's filming people on their phones. Next week, he'll have to be filming people and dobbing them in who are trying to sort of find something on their Tesla.
Oh, I've seen him. What a dreadful individual
Yeah.
that man is.
It's just... So, yeah, I think but I'm totally with you,
Allegedly.
Neil.
He is
I'm
on
totally-
TikTok.
I'm not.
I totally
Our
agree with your
company-
button thing. Here's a question for you. And I found
That
myself
cycling bloke is
in this situation
pan-platform.
about a year ago. I was trying to buy a Golf GTI, right? Which I still think is one of the best all-round
Yeah.
cars ever. And the reason I got a 7 rather than a 7.5 was I wanted clock faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though the digital dashes are okay, I think we'll look back in car design and celebrate the beautiful dials. Go and look at the dashboard of that 250LM down there, that rev counter. I mean, that's better looking than any wristwatch I've ever
is.
seen. They're
Yeah.
stunning. Manish, what do you miss in cars that should be there?
Pop-up headlights.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
You fall in love with cars once for the first time, and for me it was definitely the kind of mid to late 70s, and there were so many wedges, Boras, Countachs, Uracos,
MR2.
MR2, Berlinetta Boxer, MR2. No, but there is something completely beautiful about something that looks like it cuts the air in half, and I think all of those cars look almost as beautiful from that era with their headlights up, and that's a kind of paradox. We were talking about you love Porsche 928s, don't you? Like that kind of torch. Like I just think Countachs with the lights up, or Berlinetta Boxers with the lights up. Just having the two lights next to each other.
I agree with you. One thing about the 928 is that the light is sexual from behind as well when it's up. It's got that lovely conical, smoothed out shape. You just go, oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Come on. Is that too much?
No.
Sorry.
No. Can I talk about AMR2 just for a minute?
No, we don't. We've heard enough about your MR2. It's crap.
There's a beautiful
Go on.
one here. In that little row up behind there, there's a red 1990 facelift Mark 1 MR2.
Is it oversteering on its own patch? Because someone lifted off the throttle?
And I have. Oh, it's lovely. Just go and have a look at it. It's just wonderful.
Pop-up headlights is God, you're quite right. And it's amazing it's just legislation that killed them. They were not allowed for crashing. And also, if you're a pedestrian and you're going to get wiped out, I want to get wiped out by a BB with its lights up.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go, I don't want it to be an electric cab. I want to be taken away at the shins by a man with his headlights up. There is a downside to pop-up headlights. I can remember a couple of years ago when I had my 512 TR, which I had to sell, but God, I wish I hadn't, with just a gorgeous car. When you've got something on your car that you know is good theatre for those around you, you can't resist deploying it, can you? Or that tension of thinking, when am I going to deploy it? Like my loud engine, my exhaust. Pop-up headlights are like that as well. So I'm in Clifton in Bristol, which is obviously, it's the best part of the best city in the world. The sun's out, and I've got my Testarossa there, which has done 80-something thousand miles, and is the worst one in the country probably. But I feel great, and I think to myself, there's some people walking down the road. The sun's coming down. I'm going to do the headlights. So I go to put the headlights on, and I turn them on, and only one comes up. That's the problem with pop-up headlights, when only one works, and you end up with like a pissed-up pirate of a Ferrari.
That is an
But when you turn them back off and turn them back on, often the second one goes.
The other one.
Edward, did we ask you or not?
Can you do a handbrake turn with a button?
No.
No, well, you could. The early ones you could, but they very quickly worked out we were doing it.
Fine, then you need a handbrake.
Yeah, there was a Megane that if you were doing 90 and you pulled that up, the handbrake would go on properly, and we did it at Rockingham in an autocar test, and I nearly killed myself.
My
but it
first
worked,
car was a
worked.
Nissan Sunny 1.4 LX, and I was working at BMW Bristol in the time. And the exit road at BMW Bristol, if anyone's been there, it's uphill with a left-hander as you leave. And I perfected the handbrake turn, leaving the car dealership with all of the family employees following me out, which no wonder I didn't last there. And I was living with my parents at the time, and I also perfected the handbrake turn entering the my parents' house as well, just avoiding the wall.
It's a lovely skill, the handbrake turn.
So you're saying that the manual handbrake?
I do like a manual
I think
handbrake.
that's
Do you know what?
true. That's a good
He's
one.
absolutely bang on. I just can't stand these electric ones. And the reason why the last M2 was a great car is it had a proper handbrake in it. Also, again, the 928 comes up and everything. The 928, the right-hand side handbrake down there, by the two. Oh,
Same as a Mark 1 Jag.
I know. Why have we not got? We need a 928.
In the
We need a
911K
928.
video, which you did last week, which is on YouTube now, if you want to go and watch it, that's got a fly-off, not a fly-off, what's the...
It's got a hydraulic handbrake.
Did you use it?
Yes, Richard used it more than me, him being a rallyist.
Yes,
But the, hydraulic handbrakes should not be allowed on the road.
No.
Because they're just a crowd pleaser. They're a toy that you can't resist playing with. So if you had a car with a hydraulic handbrake, you would just be doing, handbrake turns everywhere.
Aerial Nomad.
Terrible. Has it got one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an option. It was an
Did
option.
you behave poorly?
Wasn't good enough to use it really, and I sold it after 600 miles. That thing.
You got very annoyed because I ordered one in the same spec.
You bloody did. What were you doing?
Well, you sold yours.
I did. Yeah.
Fly-off handbrake, in particular, they're gone, aren't they?
I think they are. They're in many a racing car. If you get the chance to race someone's car and they're kind enough to let you use it, that's how you make a tit of yourself normally. You think you've taken the handbrake off, and then you
I don't know how
All
to
you've
use
done
those
is
things.
just put it on harder.
I genuinely
just
don't.
hold the button in. It's all it is. It's
No,
a
but
wrong way.
sometimes
It's a
it
wrong
is.
way round handbrake, is what it is. It clicks differently. Right? Has everyone had the chance to answer the bit about a car that you missed the most?
I think so.
You have. Good.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to move on now to our two-car garage. Okay. This is acknowledging where we are today. It's not meant to be controversial or threatening.
Yet.
You are a regular guest at the Blue Ribbon car events. A recognisable, if not famous, face. You come from some money, but not real money. Accordingly, you have a few nice motor cars, but nothing more valuable than your 365 GT C4. What people don't know about you is that you're an exceptionally gifted car thief. And you're at Hampton on real business. You aim to leave the event with two cars without paying for either. One has to be an efficient blend of value and saleability to get some cash. The other is for you alone to enjoy on your Bond-esque secret Polynesian island. No one will ever know you have it. Let's start with Manish. Those two cars have to come from this event, obviously.
So I don't know if you've seen it. There's a very, very beautiful gold Lamborghini Mura SV sitting about 200 yards over there. I think it's the most beautiful car ever built. I could just stare at that car all day, or I could actually drive it around a Polynesian island all night. I don't know if you've seen 50 yards from that, there's a kind of creamy orange Lamborghini Mura P400. and they are my cars. Because I think I could sell one and be just as happy with the other. Or I think I could drive both and be happy with both. There's no way I'd sell them. I want to steal both of those cars. You'd never know I'd done it. I'll be on the, KLM to Kuala Lumpur in 4 hours after doing that. They are it's the most beautiful car ever built. Even Montesemolo agrees.
Yes, he
Does
does.
he
you're
now?
right. Yeah,
He does.
He does. Neil Clifford.
He's a bit of a shit box, but he's a very good-looking car.
I've just taken the view of choosing my 2 best cars here, and if it fits in with your thing,
So once
that's
again,
fine.
we have the problem where you're answering a different question. You're answering, like Cooper, you're answering a
Yes.
question that's not been asked.
I
Yeah.
love them.
This
Yeah.
is what comes with power. You're too powerful, both of you.
No, well, I just wanted to... In my head, I can choose 2 cars here. I can never sell them. I can never pass them to my kids. It doesn't matter about money. These are the 2 cars that I'm going to own forever, and then, I don't know, burn them when I die or whatever. Of course, now I hear that I'm taking one to an island. That's sort of fine also. Yeah. So I'm choosing the Bentley Type R, the 2-tone green car just over there. Gorgeous, gorgeous thing. Not the Alan Clark car. I wish that was here because I would choose that one.
Is it a Type R or an R-Type?
Type R,
Is it?
I think.
Is it a R-Type Continental?
I think they're R-Type.
Yeah.
R-Type Continental.
Okay, well, I'm dyslexic. I put the R at the wrong end.
Yeah. Keep going.
Oh,
Neil,
go on,
I'm
make
with
me feel bad now.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
I feel terrible,
you're picking
mate.
on my dyslexia. No, I would choose the R-Type Bentley.
Yep.
And then, crikey, it's really difficult. I've got to have a convertible, obviously, because Did you have a convertible? No, you didn't.
No.
You've got
Broken
to have a
the rules.
convertible. And there are 2 here, and I'm not going to say which one is the one I'm not choosing. The Alpha 8C 1931 Le Mans winner, which is parked in front of the house.
Has that got a centre throttle?
I've no bloody
I think
idea. Probably.
I think it does.
Yes,
and you're
yes.
going to
Probably,
steal that,
yes,
and you've
yes.
probably
Steal that
never
all
driven
right.
a car with a centre throttle, so
I
it's
would
probably not
lift-
going to get out of the car.
If it's an
park.
Alpha 8C, I'm going to learn to drive it. It'd be fine. And I mean, it's wonderful, and you can own that forever, and you can live on your island and drive it. Beautiful, wonderful.
What is it with you? So just to let you know, before I only had 5 minutes to walk around. I found the car I wanted to drive on the island.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a red Alpha 8C. It's exactly the
There's
same
2 of
answer.
them here.
Why
You
do
can
we-
have the other one.
I always answer the same way as
There's
you.
2
It's
here.
really
You
weird.
can have the other one. It's
Great,
fine.
so 2 great cars there. Chris Cooper.
So I kind of like to think this island is almost a Thunderbirds-esque
Oh, yes.
Polynesian
Yep.
island, because you just have a never-ending runway. On TikTok, have you seen that bloke who's got all the sets for the Thunderbirds shows? It's
I have seen
that.
amazing. He's got all the sets. You know, the Thunderbird 2, the palm trees that go down, and that ramp that comes up, and when Thunderbird 2 starts to lumber up very, very slowly up the ramp, and then defying all the laws of gravity and physics, sort of hangs there, slightly dips a bit at 2 miles an hour. It's wonderful. So that's the island I would like, where the laws of gravity and physics
He's
don't
not, he's
apply.
not
Do you
answering the
follow
question.
Jerry Anderson TV on
I
Instagram?
love Jerry Anderson TV. So the car I'd like to have on that island, it's a fantasy car. It's the Golf 917.
Yeah,
Because, particularly for me, because I've driven that car
not very far.
about 10 metres. About 20 years ago, the chap, Johnson Turner, who some of you may know, fantastic patron of the sport and our passion, he owned the Gulf petroleum brand in the UK. And he very kindly sponsored my Caterham racing car when I was racing those kind of things. And we had a photo shoot with that car. And the people looking after said, would you like to drive it? So I sort of got in it, and I was just far too big because it was just, it's the Steve McQueen car. So, but it's always at every show, and it's just a lovely thing, and it kind of reminds me of my youth. And so it's a fancy car on Thunderbirds Island to have that. Yeah. The other one that I'd be driving from here straight away, very close, Neil, to yours. So there's a couple of them. It's on one stand over there. There's a 1957 Bentley Series 1 drop-head coupe.
Yep.
It is really, really lovely.
Grace.
Grace, yes.
Grace, yes.
She's in the back seat.
I've given the car a name. It's called Grace.
Oh dear.
Oh
So
dear.
yeah.
Oh dear.
So that's what I'd have. So Golf 917 and a Bentley. That's what I would steal.
Nice.
Nice 2-car garage, that.
It's
Yeah,
nice.
we love it.
Right, I got 5. Now,
My work here
surely
is nearly
for the
done.
first two, for most people, would be. I thought it would be quite easy, but it's actually there's so many beautiful cars. It's not very easy. But to have the 250 GTO and the short wheelbase Cal Spider, I think they no centre throttle. You can flog them pretty easily on collecting cars. 7 days, list for free, sell for free, hassle free.
Do you respray them and rub out the serial numbers?
But of course, that isn't my
We'll
choice.
be handing out sick buckets in a minute. For
Actually, seriously, you've done very, very well.
That isn't
to get this far.
Thank you very much. That isn't my choice. My choice is CSX 2001, the first Cobra, which sat just over here.
You
A
love
black
Cobras,
Cobra.
don't you?
Come on, go look
Cobras.
at that car.
He loves the
loves
Cobra.
Cobras.
And the owner of that
Is there
car
a
is
European country in
total
which
legend.
you've not nearly crashed a Cobra?
I haven't crashed a Cobra.
I said nearly crashed.
I don't think I've nearly crashed
You
one. I
should
might-
own a
I
Cobra.
might have, yeah.
He's nearly crashed lots.
And obviously, that's my convertible. And then they're probably both going to come to the island with me. I probably won't bother selling any of them. And the other one is the 365 GTB4 competition Group 4 Daytona.
That's nice.
The
Charles
well-used
Charles
one.
Pottsy one
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
over there.
Oh,
you know,
stunning.
hopefully that fires up before you all leave today. Just go listen to it.
Stunning.
And obviously, I said I had 5, so I brought a mate with me, and I hot-wired one of the other cars, and he's driving back, which is the gold 6-litre VT Lamborghini. That might
Honestly, we've got to persuade you of that. That's the best Lamborghini I've ever driven. The 6-litre VT, the crossover Audi car, is a fantastic
It's a
race car.
Diablo, right?
It's a Diablo.
Diablo.
Yeah, well, I said anything post Diablo.
That's in.
Have we got
isn't
a-
Oh, is
it?
that in? It's
Anything
Diablo.
after.
I'm on
Diablo.
Diablo.
Okay.
That's all right.
We've got a blue one coming to the platform very
Have we?
soon. Been
Is it that
photographed
blue
yet?
one that was
Been-
it that blue one that I wanted? Oh God. Okay. Right. So my two cars, because Neil's completely done me again by choosing the same car for the 4th week running, is I've got to sell for some cash. So the white 250 GTO, I'll be having a go on that.
Very
I'll
practical.
easily flippable. No one will know
Yeah,
that
no.
I've nicked it.
No.
So we'll stick that
dear
on.
God.
You just change the colour.
I wouldn't sell it on collecting cars. I'd flip it on a lesser platform that would deal with something like that.
Less transparent.
And for me, the reason I took a photograph of the 8C that's further down the road. It's 2 years later. I think it's a 1933 model 8C. It's a 2300 Monza, right? Now, and for the same reason Neil chose it, because on this Polynesian island, I could just have a Mark II Escort, really. What you'd normally do is have a Mark II Escort, BDA, 300 horsepower, and everlasting supply of rear tyres and behave like an absolute Burke for the rest of your life. But I can do that already, and I want to learn how to drive one of these old Crocs with a crash gearbox, because I'm rubbish in them. Every time I've driven them, I'm just not very good. So the part of it would be learning to drive that car for me, and I do think they're gorgeous.
We can teach you how to drive a car again.
Can we get an 8C
I
on
don't
the
even know how
11th?
to.
On the
That's,
11th.
I mean, that's
An
the end of the
8C.
podcast. Isn't
We
it?
need an 8C.
An 8C.
See if we can borrow one for the 11th.
You mean a new
Fantastic.
8C?
No,
or that one of those,
one.
yeah.
We'll just take that one. Might as well nick it today.
Enough muttering in the ranks. I think we've reached the end there. Thank you very much for sitting with us. We're not going to do music today because I didn't write it on the requirements for this week and no one's prepared it. And everyone thinks our music is fantastically middle-aged and middle class, which it is quite deliberately. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode of the Collecting Addicts podcast. What do you want to say, Edward?
Couple of things. Coffee Run Bicester, 16th of September, and I think we're going to do a live podcast there at 10 a.m. in the morning. There is some merchandise here. We don't have any way of taking your cash, so we're going to be taking IOUs off you if anyone wants them, so lots of trust there. And Chris, we're going to be launching something next week.
Oh, we are. Now, we are branching out into the brilliantly murky world of classifieds. So there will be a classified element to collecting cards going forwards. I think all of us here, and I hope most people in this tent, love perusing classifieds, grazing classifieds in bed before you go to sleep, last thing before you do, looking on the well-known brands that we've all enjoyed. We want a bit of that action. We think there's so much joy in it. And we also want to present classifieds as being something fun. So please watch this space, and if you want to list your car, contact one of the team.
Make classifieds great again.
That's going to be the buzzword. Make classifieds great again.
Oh, God.
Thank you very much for joining us for this live recording of the Collecting Addicts podcast. Hope to meet you all soon.
Thank you.